The hospital systems and these large employers, they want you to buy the large house. They want you to
Hmm.
buy the nice cars. They want you to be stuck, and they give
I
you a
know.
non-compete too. So they know they can give you a decent contract the first 2 years. And then when it comes up for renewal, if they want to, they can really hammer you and you essentially have very
Yeah.
little recourse.
I didn't even mention the non-compete. That's even worse. And then what happens to it? Yeah, I've a lot of times they have the realtor like waiting for you when you go visit, and they're like, "Oh, let's go to the $1 million house neighborhood." And the hospital has the realtor that they introduce. I have suspicion that it is an intentionality aspect to that, which is pretty sad, but it does benefit. The hospital has incentives to kind of lock people down.
Oh yeah.
And the best way to lock somebody down is to get them to buy a big old fancy house.
Yeah, they want leverage, right? You got a non-compete and you need that salary. You are salary addicted. They've got all the leverage in the world. They say, hey, you
Hmm.
need to travel out an hour to go see patients at this faraway clinic we just bought. I don't want to. Well, you have to. Okay.
Hmm.
It doesn't jive well with me. I mean, for me living in the basement, like, what are you going to do to me?
Right. Yeah.
I'm already in my in-laws' basement. I'm comfortable there. Not that I want to stay there forever. Like, I don't need any money. I mean, I don't need a ton of money at that time. And then as we got more money, I mean, right now I'm in my own basement recording this. So we moved up in the world. But we did that once the business was stable and we had wealth and we could sort of buy things. And even as the wealth increases, we still buy quality things, but I try to remain frugal. I think
Yeah.
frugality is super important.
Yeah.
Um, I would say the difference between that and being cheap is someone who's frugal will still spend for quality and buy nice things and do things they want to do, while someone who's cheap just will try to not spend any money if at all possible. So
Period.
I think frugality it would be a good trait among a lot of physicians if they could harness that. But a lot of them don't. They've been waiting, 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 waiting. They finally get there. Like, I deserve all this really nice stuff. And I guess they do, but they're setting a trap for themselves.
Yeah, and that's a bad spot to be in. It can come and bite you. And at that point, you don't even want to admit that you're having trouble with work because you're realizing you don't have any options. So you have to kind of like put on your smile and like, which I think would even compound that further because you're like cognitive dissonance. It's like, you're doing one thing and in reality it's completely a different thing. And you're like, who am I? I mean, that kind of stuff really weighs on people and it's a tough spot to be in. The good news about, I mean, if you're listening, you're in like that sort of spot, like you don't have to like continue. The best thing to do is to cut the lifestyle to free up the control to make choices. You're not gonna be able to quit the job until you free up the lifestyle in that sort of situation. You have to do the lifestyle thing first and then you'll start to feel those options. I've worked with some people that have sold the big fancy house, moved in with their parents in the basement, and went back the other direction. It's totally possible, and you can get the control back. It just takes some hard decisions.
Yeah, it's all about leverage. So you've built yourself if you buy all that stuff, right? And like I totally get the reason why someone buys it. It's not a
Hmm.
morally corrupt decision. It's just
No.
causes you long-term pain. I mean, you've essentially created a zero leverage position for yourself. So you want to get leverage back to the point where, the hospital says, we want you to do this. And you can say, I don't want to. And then you say, well, we're going to let you go. And you say, fine.
Yeah.
And they realize, oh, wait a second, we need you. And
Right.
then you can bargain again,
Leverage.
or you can do
Right.
you need leverage. And I think a lot of that comes from being in training as a resident where you have a zero leverage possession
Hmm.
pretty much the entire time, maybe
Right.
even negative leverage. I mean, it's really bad. I had
Yeah.
only one single time in residency that I ever had any leverage, which was when I was supposed to sign these documents on time, and I did, but the system went down. So I got them all late and it would have created like some sort of warning in the system. I said, look, I'm happy to sign them. I realized your system went down. I just want something in writing saying that it's not my fault. And they're like, oh, we spoke to our supervisor and we don't do that. And I'm like, well, then I'm not signing. And they went all the way to my chairman, right? And he's like, oh, he's very
uh,
smart. He supported me. And then they did give it to me. And that is the only time I ever had any leverage in res. Because, right, you make, because then something later happens and they're like, well, this is a history for you. And you're like, no, that first time wasn't my fault. And they just do not care. So that way you have it in writing. You can throw it
yeah.
out.
I mean, leverage is important and having the freedom.